Hello, hello. Okay, so greetings everyone. Hope you're doing great and hope you're taking good care of yourselves. In this live stream, my goal is to discuss the Django admin interface. In the previous videos, what we've so far done is to build this very simple app. We have some web pages, we have some data coming from the back end through our views and our context. So all this data is dummy data that is coming from our database. But what we want to go ahead and do is to make sure that we use real data that's coming from our database, which we're not actually doing here because most of this data is coming from a list of dictionaries, which can basically imitate what we are supposed to have as our real database. So we shall go to our code right in here. And the first thing we're going to modify is how we are rendering our products list. So our product list is simply this simple list right here, the products variable, which is basically coming from our data, which is a list of products that we used in the previous video. Now, what I'm going to do is to import our model, which we've defined under the models.py in the same module. So I'll say import product. And once we've imported that product model, we shall then query for all products. We looked at how to do that in the previous video. Please go ahead and check it out. So I'll say products.objects.all, and that will bring in all the products we have. So that means if we go back this side, since I then have to run the server, I think. So yeah, my server wasn't running. I'll go ahead and activate that virtual environment real quick with env scripts activate, and then I will go ahead and run our server with python manage.py run server. So that will start our development web server. And when you go right here, we refresh, we currently have nothing. So the first thing we're going to do is to populate our database with some items, and we're going to be using the data that we've so far set up inside our data or our products list. So to do that, I'm going to be using the same management shell that we used in the previous video. So I will basically go in here, clear the terminal, and then I'll say python manage.py shell. This will open up the Django shell. So we all know that all our products, or actually our product model, is present inside here because Django is giving access to it by automatically importing it and other special objects or classes. So for our case, we have the product app, or we have the product model already available for us to use. Now I'm going to import the data that we've created, which is found in products.data under the list of products. Once that is done, we are now going to populate our database with some data. Now, one thing to note is when you go back to our models basically describe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. And in here, we have these 3 fields as fields that can be automatically set by Django if we do not specify any. Now, the reason that's why I'm leaving out the image URL is because the image URL is going to be something we can upload, and we're going to look at how we can set that up. So to start, we are going to go ahead and simply fill in the name and the description based on the data that we have in our initial dummy database of products. So to do that, I'll come in our terminal, and then we're going to be using our product class. So I talked about models and managers in the previous video. So this gives us access to the objects manager, which is an object through which we can query or call specific methods to perform different things on our database. And what I want in this case is to create. So this will create and save an object. So if I create a sample object, like let's say name is equal to let's say sample item, and then I give it a description. So the description here is going to be equal to the sample description. This will go ahead and automatically save the item. So that's what we want to do for all the products that exist within this dummy list of items. So what I'm going to be doing is to use a for loop to loop through each of the products inside our products list. And then I'll use the product class to create objects. So I'll say products.objects.create, and then I will provide the different attributes. For our case, I'll say name is going to be equal to p name, since these are dictionaries. So that will set the value, just like you see. Each of our items in the products list has a key and a value, so we access it with the key, which is our name. So if I go back here and pull up that, if I go to the description, I will still do the same thing. So I'll say product description, and that will basically add the description. So since those are the only two fields I'm filling for now, I'll close the brackets and press enter. And what that will do is to populate our database with some initial data. So when you go back right here and refresh, we now see all items have been added to our database, which is our simple SQLite file that we have. In fact, if I open my DB browser right here and I open the simple database we have, we shall head over to browse data and then select the table for our products, which will have all this information. Now, one thing we can note is that for the column of image URL, we have a default value, which is default.png. But since this is a file field or an upload field or an image field, Django basically point to the media folder and then provide this default.png string as the file to be displayed for that specific column. So yeah, that's why we see that we do not have any here. In fact, if we are to inspect, we are now going to see that we have source equals to default.png, which is the name of the image, but we also need to have the URL that's going to allow us to access the image as the source, because that's what Django will need. So this image, let me try to make this bigger, has a source which is default.png, which is the actual string to represent the image URL. But in case we want to point to where the image is located, we then need to provide a URL for that source attribute of that image to point to. So that's how you display images. So for us to do that, I'm going to try to access a specific object, like let's say the first product, by saying product.objects.first. So that will return the first object, and that will return our sample item which we created. So if I say product.objects.first, then I access the image URL, we notice that that will return an object, and yet we want to access the URL. So what we want to do is to then go ahead and call the URL, and this time we shall see that this is going to point to /media/default.png. Now the thing is, when we go back to our settings.py, we set up some stuff that has to do with how we're going to serve our media files. So our media files will be accessed via the URL media, and that's exactly why we are seeing Django tell us that the URL for that image to be accessed is going to be on /media/default.png, which we already created inside our files here. So if I go to media, we already have the default.png. Please check the previous video to see how that was set up. And then we also have base-media, which will point to the specific folder in which we have our media files, or all the uploaded things we have uploaded to our server. So that's exactly what we want. Now, to go back to our template contains product or image URL alone, and yet in this case we want to have access to the specific URL that's going to serve that file, which is product.imageurl.url. So if we are to go back this side and refresh, we shall notice that our URL this time has changed to /media/default.png. But when we go back here, we actually see that our image has been placed there, which means we have successfully been able to display our default image for all those items that do not have product images, which is interesting. Another thing we may want to change is if we go back to our templates in here and go to, let me first close all of these and go to base.html. If you're wondering how I'm closing files, simply placing the combination Ctrl K followed by W. That's like the VS Code keyboard shortcut for closing all active windows. So I can press Ctrl P to go back to base.html, and then when I'm in base.html, I can simply go back and change a few things. So what I want to do is to edit our navbar as well as our footer to have dynamic links instead of the links that we currently have. Now, if you're wondering how I added these two sections, that is present in the video where I talk about templates. So go ahead and check that video before coming here. But if I to check footer.html, it's found inside templates and then includes and then footer.html. If you're wondering how these look, you can please check in the GitHub repository link that I'm going to leave in the description. So we currently have only these links, and these links are links that are hard-coded, meaning if they change, then we are most likely not to navigate to that specific page. But Django provides for us a special tag. Now we looked at tags and filters and the rest of the other template specific things in that video. So tags will allow us to be in position to just dynamically add a URL without hard coding its name like we have done here. And the way we get those names for the URLs is through our URL patterns. If we're to look at each URL pattern we've so far created, we notice that we have a name attribute right here. So this name is just a name that's going to represent a view or an URL mapping. So instead of providing the root URL as slash, we can go ahead and provide the name of the pattern we've created in our urls.py. So if I go to footer, can come right here, and then I say URL, so I will place the tag there, and then this will take in the name of that specific URL we want to add. So shall do the same thing here. I'll just simply copy what I have here and paste it in here, and then for the about page I will remove the /about and add URL. So this will be the URL to our about page, which we actually called about page. So I'll come in here and say about_page. For the contact page, I'll then come right in here and say URL, then shall have our contact page. So that's how we're going to be placing URLs in our templates moving forward. So I'll do the same thing for the other include, which is our header, which I actually called navbar.html. So inside navbar.html, I will still have to add that URL. So this will be to our home page. And then on the about page, we can have the about URL. So please go ahead and check out the GitHub repo. It contains all these sections, but these are just bootstrap UI components or HTML that's already written for us. So I'll just go ahead and add this and then add contact underscore page. So when I save and head over back here, you can now see our links working. So that means even if we went back to our URL patterns and changed the URL, Django will automatically resolve and make that work on the front end without us having to edit our templates. So yeah, that's what we currently have on our page right here. Now the next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and now look at the Django admin. So the Django admin, like I said, is the administrative dashboard that comes by default within Django. And this role is to help us be in position to manage data within our application, and it works closely with our Django models. So we've so far created only one Django model, which is the product model. Now we need to register it onto our admin. But before we do that, let's first of all create a super user. So the super user is the user who is going to be authorized to access the Django admin. And all super users must be authorized to have access to that Django admin. Now, just like I explained, Django has a default authentication system it comes with that gives us the ability to create things like user accounts. So the first user account we're going to be creating will be the admin account, and this will help us to access the dashboard like we're going to see. I'll be talking about authentication and authorization and all those things later in the series. So what I'll do is to open up my terminal, and I'll exit out of here by pressing Ctrl and Z and enter, and then I come back and clear my terminal with CLS. Right after doing that, I'm going to write a command, python manage.py create super user. And once I've done that, I'll then create the super user, so you can leave it blank. That will default to the name of the user who is currently logged in. And then when I provide my email, I'll give my email as that. Then I'll provide a password, so I'll provide a very simple password. If you provide a simple password, you need to understand that Django will validate, so the passwords do not match. If I provide a very simple password like test123 and test123 again, I'll be told that that password is too short, but since I'm in testing, I can get away with it, so I can say bypass password validation, and then I'll enter. So our super user has been created. Once the super user has been created, the next thing I'm going to do is to head over to the admin dashboard. So the way I do that is to go to 127.0.0.1 slash or port 8000 slash admin, or I can go to localhost 8000 admin, and that will take me right here. So I'll provide a username for that user as well as the password, which I call test123. So when I enter, that will take me to the Django admin. Now, if you open this for the very first time, you'll now see that you have a dashboard that's fully built for you. You don't have to build anything. This is already set up and it works with the default Django models. So the first thing we're going to do is to come in here, and we note that we have currently two models that have been registered. So these are specific to the authentication app, which I talked about in the previous video. That's an inbuilt app for Django to carry out authentication and authorization stuff. And in here, we have user management. So this is like a simple dashboard to help you manage the users that you currently have within your application. We have only one default user, and that's the user I've created. We can click on that user, set their password, set a username for them. So I can add my first name, and then I can provide myself a last name. And then once those are done, I can even remove someone's super user status right here, or add them to a specific group, or give them permissions and the rest of those things. So I'll go ahead and save, and that will modify my user. And that's basically how this admin works. It's just a way for you to interact with data or manage data within your Django app. Next is going to be the groups model. So this is out of the scope of this series, but you can think of groups as ways to classify users. If you're building an app that has, let's say, different groups of users, here is where you create a group and then you provide permissions to users who will be present within that group. So yeah, that's how the Django admin works. Now the next thing we're going to do is to bring in our own model. By our own model, I mean the model we created when we created this product model right here. So for us to make this work, there is a file in every app that you're always going to have, which is called the admin.py app. So admin.py is the file that's going to be responsible for helping us to register our models so that we can access them on the admin. To start, I'm going to import our model. So I'll say from .models, import the product model. And once we've done that, then we shall just simply use the admin module right here. So this is going to contain the different things we shall need to configure our admin. But what we need for this case is going to be the sites variable or the sites objects. So this is going to be admin.sites, which is an object. Then that object has this method called the register method. So admin.site.register. So the VS Code extension is what is helping me to have these auto completions. Please install it because it's super helpful. And that's the one for from the guides at Microsoft. So please install it before you continue in this video, as it will be the one to show you these auto completions, show you what functions take in and what they do. So yeah, once you import admin, you can call the site object and then call the register method. So this register method takes in two things. The first one being the model or iterable we want to administer or add to the admin. So for our case, this is going to be the model, which is product. And once we provided our product, save. If our server is running successfully without errors, we can see that that is added here. So we can administer or manage product data. If I go to products, this is how products are represented within our dashboard for products. Now the beauty about Django is that this is entirely customizable, meaning we can sort of group products, make people search for products, and do very many other things. So let's start with a simple customization. What if we wanted to change this display of items and make it something that is very easy for users to view? Maybe display the product name, the product, and other details about the product on this specific page. To do that, we shall have to create a model admin class that's responsible for helping us add such customizations. And the way we do that is to just come right in here and create a class called a model admin class. So we can simply call it, like, let's say product admin for products, or car admin for cars, or let's say user admin for users, and the rest of those. But this has to inherit from admin.model admin. So basically what I mean here is this class is going to be a child class of the admin.model admin class. So this will go ahead and give us access to all options, and we can specify values that will then help us to customize how our Django admin looks like. So to start, I'll start with a simple attribute called list display. This attribute allows us to specify the attributes on the class we want to use in our product list that we're going to display right here. So we can say we are going to provide the name of our products, and when we go back here, we have, I think we do not have anything that worked, so maybe let me just restart the server. Refresh. We still have this. Now the reason that's why that is not working is because I've forgotten to register this product admin class onto where we register it. So there are very many approaches to doing it. There are not many, but the first one is to just add it to the end of this by saying product admin. So yeah, because that takes in the model admin, the admin class. So if we provide that, then we shall see the name displayed in the list of items. Then we can provide another attribute. So if we go back to our models, we can have description. So we can come right here on our admin and let's say add the description. I know this will look a little bit weird given that descriptions can be very long. So if we say description and save, if you come back here, these will be very long descriptions, just like you see right there. And that is like the way to customize our Django admin. So let's do something more interesting. We can also add search fields. So search fields is also going to be a list, and this list is going to have all fields we can search. So we can search for the name, and that will add this search bar right here. We can also specify how many items we want to add for every page. So we can say that we are going to be listing, or we can list per page, and we can specify that we only want to list, let's say, 10 items per page. So what that will do is to create for us some pagination to allow us to view different pages on which our products are. So you have a short list like this, but you can navigate to page number 2, which will show these items. Go page number 3, and that will show items. We can also add filtering functionality by adding filter or list filter. Sorry for that. So I can say list filter, and maybe we can filter by the created at date. So when I add categories, we can also be able to filter by category, but for our case, for now, I'll just say we shall filter them by the date at which they were created. So this will add this filter that will then allow us to view products by the date they were created. So that's very important because it gives you a very easy way to filter your items and be in position to make queries or searches, or basically make your life easy while working with a Django admin. Of course, there are very many things you can do with the Django administrative classes. So if I come, I can have date hierarchy. I can go ahead and also specify ordering. So I can say we are ordering by, let's say, the negative created at. So that will help us to order items by descending order. So if I refresh, I think I'm having an error. So the value of ordering must be a list or tuple. So I guess I'll just have to change this to a list, and then our server has to restart. So when our server restarts, if we go back here and refresh, we now see that we have that ascending order. So let me add the date created then. So if I come right here, I can add date created or created at in our list filter, and then I'll remove the description because descriptions can be very long for items. So yeah, if I refresh, this is going to be created at. So I think that's why the server didn't start. So the server will restart, and then when I refresh, we now have our dates shown right here. So yeah, that's how the Django admin works, and it's basically a very powerful way. We can add a product here. We have a form for adding products where we can add sample 3, add a description for that. So we can say description and then save. So since we have our default images, we now see that our sample item will be added. But this is in the order that we are not using on the admin. So we need to also change how our models work in ordering items when we query them from the database. So how do we change that? On our model classes, we can also add classes or methods or things to help us customize how our models work. But we can customize the ordering by adding a meta class, and this can have different attributes, but what we need is the ordering. And then here, this takes in one field, so in our case, we shall just order by negative created at, meaning we want the last item we created to appear as the first item that is going to be shown in our query. So that means sample number 3, which we've created here, has to be the first item when we refresh this page. So when I refresh, I guess I'm not making the same mistake. If I go back to my terminal right here, turns out I was making the mistake all along. So if I come and say this is going to be a list of fields and refresh, now we see sample number 3, which is the one we created right here, showing up at the top, and then the first item we created is showing up at the bottom, which is interesting. So we shall look at Django forms and we shall implement functionality in which we can add images or show different images for different products, just like you see right here. So yeah, that has been the discussion on the Django admin, and we shall basically go ahead and look at something else tomorrow morning. I want to apologize for how the first attempt for this live stream went, because I then was fidgeting with data, or the internet here messed up and I couldn't make the live stream really well. So I thought I would make a retake of that and then make the video. And I hope you are gaining value from this playlist. This playlist is a very simple playlist I've made for beginners who are getting started with Django, because I've been teaching Django to people who have not built a web app before. So I thought this will be a way to help them or guide them to build with Django. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've done so, leave a like. Please do it for me and do it for the algorithm. Also, do not forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel. I create a lot of content on web development, specifically with Python and other technologies I find useful. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. We're going to be talking about views in detail. We're going to be discussing function versus class-based views, context, URL parameters, path parameters, and the rest of those things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.